Hello chess friends and welcome to Qh8 Chess channel and welcome back to our Slav defense series. So in this series we're covering this very nice opening from whites and from blacks perspective, and today we're continuing again with the Slav defense and the so-called Schlechter variation. The Schlechter variation I think is a pragmatic idea of blacks to play this fianchetto idea with the move g6, bishop to g7, and one of the best ways we have talked about this idea is one of the best ways to beat fianchettos is actually to create an early flank attack, like in maybe in the Yugoslav attack, 150 attack, and many of these brilliant attacks against the fianchetto. We have seen many times this early flank attack, and I think in the Schlechter variation you should also try this early flank attack, and we'll see now really a brilliant game played by Nepo against Giri with the flank attack against the Schlechter variation. And this game will have really some immortal tactics with some double piece sacrifices, but these are not like usual, you know, you have a double piece sacrifice and then you have maybe a forced checkmate in 2 or 3 moves. No, in this game we see a double piece sacrifice, but the game still has to be prolonged, the game has to be still played, so the defender has to find the best next defensive move. Of course also the attacker has to find then the best next attacking move, which is really wild. And basically the game started here as a Grunfeld defense, and the Grunfeld defense can actually transpose into the Slav defense the Schlechter variation, which is really wild. Let's check out now the first this Schlechter variation, but also how the game can be transposed from the Grunfeld defense into the Schlechter variation. So here let's check out d4. We have d5, c4. Let's again remember this moves of the Schlechter variation. We have c6, knight to nf3, knight to f6, knight to c3, and we have now the 3 knight variation. We have talked about this idea as d takes c4, but now we're analyzing again the Schlechter variation with the move g6. One of the best ways is actually here for white to play simply the move bishop to g5. We have talked about our ideas here with the move bishop to f4. In my opinion, the move bishop on f4 is not the best of ways to proceed in the Schlechter variation, because the bishop on f4 is not battling for the center. We're actually already battling for the center because we're attacking the knight, which is controlling the very important d5 square. This bishop on g5 move is also a preparation for a potential flank attack with the move h4, h5, because if we play maybe h4, then bishop takes f6, then actually a very move like h5 would be very dangerous. Also, if we try something like c takes d5, then knight to d5, whenever the knight gets deflected from the square h5, then h4, h5 is actually very dangerous, because we see now after bishop to g7, let's see possible continuation. Maybe you try here c takes d5, after knight to d5. I think after move h4 that black is already in serious trouble. The h5 will happen now. Even e4 is an opportunity, so I think, as I said, black could face many tactical and positional problems now in the continuation of the game. So here after move h4, actually for black here the best way is to proceed simply d takes c4. It seems like a strange idea to play this d takes c4 idea, because you're giving up your center, but now after move e4 the best way for black here is to proceed with the very unnatural move bishop to e6. At least in the beginning it seems that it's a natural move, because after move bishop to e6 we can notice now that white cannot attack the bishop on e6 with the move knight to g5 because the bishop is already there, so you cannot attack the bishop from this very active square. And the problem is now for white that white cannot proceed with the natural d5 move. White would left, of course, to play the move d5, breaking in the center with this central pawn storm, but then of course c takes d5 will happen. Even if you try bishop to f6, bishop takes f6, even if you try here something like, I don't know, e takes d5, then you get first, of course, bishop takes c3, b takes c3, and now after move queen to d5 it's game over simply here for white. So as said, here the best way really is to proceed here simply with the move d takes c4, allowing your opponent the move e4, then bishop to e6, and now we're simply waiting. White has, of course, the powerful central control. Of course, black is up 1 pawn, and still also white has opportunities to create the further flank attack. We'll see also in the continuation of the Schlechter variation series also great gameplay by Nepo with the black pieces against Giri Kasparov in this particular setup, in which Nepo really destroyed Giri Kasparov with the black pieces in the exactly same position here with the move bishop to e6. But here instead of this move bishop to e6, here in the continuation of the game Giri played the move b5. and b5 is actually not the best of ways, although it seems so that you have of course this very annoying move b4, and then maybe the pawn on e4 could be endangered. But let's start again this game, because you see now that this game transposed into the Schlechter variation of the Slav defense from a Grunfeld defense game. So d4, knight to f6, we have g6, knight to c3, we have d5, the Grunfeld defense, knight to f3, 3 knights variation, bishop to g7, and here Nepo tried an early flank attack with the move h4, and now we have basically reached the same position, but it came out from a Grunfeld defense game. So here c6, we have set bishop to g5, we have again this idea d takes c4, e4, and as we said, Giri played now the move b5. Here Nepo, I think, reacts correctly. He plays now the move e5 because he's not allowing of course b4, then knight takes e4 would be the serious threat. Here in the continuation we have knight to d5, and here Nepo goes all in with the great move h5. Continue simply the pressure with the move h5. I think you would love now to have here the bishop on e6, because the bishop on e6 is also a great protector here of light squares in front of black's king. So that's why I think instead of this b5 move, this idea to play first the move bishop to e6 is much better here for black. So if you want to study the Schlechter variation of the Slav defense from black perspective, I think the move bishop on e6 is a must move, because you see now that it's already a very dangerous position here for Giri. Giri played now a natural idea. What he's hoping for is of course that maybe Nepo retreats, and then he can pass through with the move g5, and now suddenly black has solved all the positional problems. But that was not of course Nepo's goal. Nepo tried here really brilliant attack. He sacrificed the piece with the move h takes g6. After the h takes g5, taking the bishop, of course we have rook takes h8, bishop to h8, and now comes the stunner of course g takes f7, the check. We have king to f7, and now knight to g5. Really wild stuff. If you try now here to play and the move king to e8, the problem is now this idea a4, because with the move a4 we can play down a takes b5, and then also the a file gets opened. And the problem is, I think, also this next move queen to h5 with the support with the move knight to f7. Again, black can face many tactical problems. I think from this point on black is lost, although black has an extra piece, but this bishop on h8 is really endangered. So black has to finally play with the king trying to escape. But with the move a4, I think it's a great move. It's actually the suggested move by the engine. We can finally open also the a file, and then also include our rook into the game, include our knight into the game, include our bishop into the game, and then with the move queen to g4, maybe queen to f3, or another attack on light course. As I said, black can face many tactical problems. So really brilliant stuff, this tactic by Nepo. As I said, king to f7, knight to g5. We have now king to g6. Played by Giri. He's trying now to get somehow his king very secure, because he's trying to hide behind this knight, which is not the worst of moves here by Giri. In the continuation we have queen to f3. What Nepo is trying to do here is of course queenside castling somehow, maybe even bishop to e2, or maybe even bishop to d3 if the position allows it. Then when the rook is here on the square, then maybe to try also to get the rook or somehow on the h file, then support the further attack against black's king. But because what we can notice now that actually here black has problems to develop here the minor pieces. Even if you try here something like bishop to f5, it's not so good because you can simply get kicked away with the move g4. So it's not so good to bring your pieces into the game. I think the escape route should be probably the main defensive goal here, trying to get your king somehow here towards the queen side, because I think now, as I said, here g4 is simply winning immediately the game. So that's why you see you cannot include other pieces into the defense. So here after move king to g6, as said, queen to f3 here played by Nepo. We have knight takes c3, b takes c3, and here Giri grabs a second piece. So it's so far a double piece sacrifice. In the continuation of the game, unfortunately, Nepomniachtchi makes really not the best of moves. He plays now the move queen to f7, which seems like a natural idea because we're cutting off the potential escape route for the king. What we want to do now is again simply include other pieces into the gameplay, maybe something like f3, maybe even g4, bishop to e2, queenside castling, as I said, the rook to h1, simply attacking further also maybe the bishop. But here better choice would have been simply the move queen to g3, and now after king to f5, here simply bishop to e2 is a serious threat, because now the bishop will come on g4, and with the support of the queen again imposing pointing out queenside castling, getting the rook somewhere here. Again, black is tactically lost, but still after queen to f7 it's not such a bad position for white, because it's actually black now that has to find the best next defensive moves. After move queen to f7, we have queen to d5. Now comes the standard queen to e7, check, king to h6, and now another check, queen to f8, now bishop to g7, and here Nepo grabbed a piece. But still Giri has now this opportunity to play simply the move queen to d7 to trade off the pieces, to trade off the queens, which is basically the best way simply to proceed here, because when you're maybe up a whole piece like in this particular position, but your king is in danger, then of course you want to simplify the game, trading off more pieces, going into a favorable endgame. Actually, queen to d7 is a must move now for Giri. The game would probably end in a draw, because Nepo has to play something like king to g8, queen to d5, maybe queen to e8 again, but now again queen to d7, simply trying the perpetuals and trying to trade off the queens. But here after move queen to c8, Giri plays now huge blunder. He plays now the move c5, is trying to open maybe this position, trying to get some kind of a new square for the knight, but here Nepo punishes this move immediately with the move queen to h3. We have king to g6, and now queen to g4. We have king to h7, and now queenside castling. As we said, the main threat is now bishop to e2 and then rook to h1. In the continuation, we have knight to c6, but it's a little bit too late to bring now all of your pieces into the game. You see, for a long time this knight hasn't played in the game, the rook hasn't played in the game. Now Nepo plays, of course, bishop to e2, now with threats of bishop to f3. In the continuation, we have c takes d4. We have now queen to f5. We have king to g8, and now comes this idea, bishop to f3. We have queen to e5, but now bishop to d5 by Nepo, and in this position Giri resigned. So whatever you do, of course, king to h8 is not working, because you get rook to h1. We have talked about this idea. The main goal is simply to get this rook somehow into the game. So brilliant attack. But let's go back to this critical moment of the attack. I think this is simply working. This move h5, h6, okay, seems like a dangerous idea, but now h takes g6, we have h takes g5, rook takes h8, bishop to h8, g takes f7, and now knight to g5. I think from this point on, white could have a really brilliant game. I think you should use this line in order to beat the Schlechter variation of the Slav defense. But actually, as I said in the beginning, after move d takes c4 and now e4, the best way here for black is to proceed with the move bishop to e6. That's actually the best way. Now we're analyzing then in the continuation of the series this move knight to after move e5, then knight to d5 will happen. So as I said, this is a great continuation for black. I think white is also some strategical ideas here. Black is also some attacking opportunities, and in the continuation of the series we're analyzing really great game played by Giri Kasparov with the white pieces against Jan Nepomniachtchi. Exactly in this position, be prepared. This was also a brilliant chess game. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this gameplay by Nepo, this brilliant attack by Nepo in the Schlechter variation of the Slav defense. If you want to study the Slav defense more, check out my Slav defense series. Here's the link of our whole playlist. And if you want to study some openings for black, check out my hyper accelerated Dragon Sicilian defense series and my Nimzo Indian defense series as good responses against d4 and e4. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.